Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another video from the Canal Sidings Model Railway channel. The loco you've just seen running past is my Bachmann Class 08, which you've seen in pieces, and you've seen the gear train fixes that I've done on it. I have now fitted it with a decoder. It's hardwired because it isn't DCC ready. It's a hardwired Lay's DCC decoder, and I was running it initially at address 3. I have now set it to the loco's number, which is my usual 08762, so I've set it to 8762, the last 4 digits, and as you can see, it runs very well, and it's very powerful. It's pulling that 17 wagon train containing a lot of hoppers, VGAs and OTAs, and some CEA hoppers. Very powerful, very smooth running loco. So that is a success. Now you may notice that I've called this video something like Trials and Tribulations and Some Successes of DCC Locomotives. The reason for this is that we don't all have success every time we put DCC to something, as I think you've seen already with my Helljan locomotive, which my Helljan 47, which I've had all sorts of problems with. The last problem I had with it was it actually burnt out a decoder. Now I think it's because the decoder wasn't very good and not so much that the locomotive was bad, but it actually, I don't think it has any real protection in it. All it is just says it's a 1 amp decoder, peak current 1.8 amps. But if you draw more than 1.8 amps, or you draw more than 1 amp for any length of time, I think the decoder eventually overheats. And what was happening was that I was still having a lot of trouble with my Class 47. The train that it was pulling, which was that one that you saw, was part of the trouble, because it's got Bachmann's god-awful single wheeled or single axle bogies on some of the wagons, and basically it's just a recipe for the wheels facing in opposite directions on a straight piece of track. It doesn't follow the track. The curves are not followed by the wheels at all. Bachmann have got that completely wrong, as Helljan got it wrong with their bogie vehicles on their cargo wagons. What I always do with those Bachmann wagons is lock those silly wheel sets so that they face fore and aft and can't move sideways. This means that they probably would struggle now to get round first radius curves, but as I never use anything that small, the smallest on my layout is going to be third radius, and that's only going to be on a couple of curves. So I lock them straight, and that makes the whole train run so much more smoothly. I also cleaned up some of the wheels, and I had one wagon that was really stiff, and I put some graphite in the wheel bearings, and that has helped a lot. However, what was happening was that the 47 also had a problem of its own, in which it would sometimes slow right down, almost to a stop, and then would start to pull away unrealistically, and then may slow down and then pull away. And I think this was the amount of power required by the motor was exacerbated, I think is the right word, by the fact that the train was stiff as well as the loco wasn't running very well. What I have done with that 47, I did a little bit of googling about Helljan Class 47s not running very well, and it turns out that Helljan used copper to make the wheel sets, and those wheel sets made of copper sound a brilliant idea because they look as if they're rusty, and they sound as if they should pick up well. But actually their pickup capabilities off a nickel silver rail or steel rail is awful. because copper tarnishes very quickly, and also picks up a lot of muck. So essentially Helljan locomotives need their wheels cleaned about every half an hour, which is absolutely stupid. So I thought, well, I need to replace the wheels. I know from reading Ramsay's, which is the 4mm, the British Model Trains Bible, I know from that Helljan improved their wheels later on by using nickel silver versions. But I had no idea where to get Helljan spares, so I looked at the possibility of buying some ultra scale wheels for it. A set of 6 axles, 4 with drive gears on them, from ultra scale would cost £30, which in itself isn't so bad because they would be very good quality. However, the lead time is 9 months. I can't wait 9 months after paying my 30 quid to get what I want for that loco. So I looked elsewhere and I suddenly remembered that I had seen Helljan spares advertised on the Howes website, Howes of Oxford. So I dropped Howes an email asking them if there was any chance they could find spare wheels for the Class 47. And they came back and they said, yes, we already stock them, but they don't mention the Class 47, they're for the Class 26, 27, 33, and that's where it ends. And they're sold as 4 axles, all with drive gears on, and a set is £10.50. And basically you keep the centre wheels on the Helljan loco because they don't pick up electricity anyway, so it'll run smoothly, whatever. So I thought, okay, I'll give it a try. So I bought a couple of sets of these wheels and I have fitted them, and I'll now show you my Class 47 running with the new wheel sets. I've also adjusted the sound a little bit on this loco to reduce it because it was so loud. What I've done is put a 10 ohm resistor in series with the loudspeaker, and then just turned it up 1 notch on the decoder. And here she comes now. And what I'm doing on the next pass is I'll just slow it right down so that we can actually see it performing at low speed, which is where you really noticed the problems that it had. And one of the things you used to notice was that the lights flickered terribly. They do very little of that now. With those nickel silver wheels she'll run like that all day. So that's another success. I have a Lay's DCC decoder in there now as well, and I think that is actually a little bit more likely to survive the excess currents that Helljan motors take than the Hatton's decoder that I had in originally. So that's another problem that I've had that I hopefully now have solved. There is another loco that I've had a problem with, and that's coming along now. And it's a loco that has featured many times on this channel with problems. This is once again my Class 31. I'll just turn the sound off. Now what this loco has been doing wrong, seemingly randomly, when just standing, not being used, it will suddenly start to move. I think always in reverse, but because it's so random and so intermittent, it's difficult to know. But I scratched my head over this because the first time it happened, it was in my fiddle yard, and I suddenly noticed its train was out of position. Because I can't see the fiddle yard lots of the time that I'm operating, because I don't actually look at the monitor. But so I took it off the front of the train and got rid of the train and brought the loco out and put it on a siding out in the room, and thought no more of it, until suddenly one day I saw it take off in reverse quite fast and hit a buffer stop at the end of the line. And I thought, I don't understand this, what's going on? And I stopped the loco that I was running at the time, and the 31 stopped. And I started the loco that I was running, everything was right again. Now the loco I was running at that time, and I did this again, and it happened an hour or so later. What I was doing at the time was testing that class 08 that you saw earlier in the video. And at that time it was set to address 3. And I have had locos, and I often have a loco on the track, for a few minutes being tested with address 3 before I actually connect it up to JMRI, to Decoder Pro, and set it up to exactly what I want and set all the other things that I want to do on it. But this is my one and only locomotive that has a TTS decoder that is still driving the motor as well as producing the sound. And I am guessing that each time I have had a loco on the track set to address 3, when this 31 has been on the track at the same time, that every now and again this 31 responds not to its correct address of 1110, being the last 4 digits of its 31110 number, which is always what I use, but responding to its short address, which is 3. And what I'll do now is I'll show you what I mean by this, because people may not be familiar with where the values are stored, how the values are stored in a decoder for address settings. JMRI's Decoder Pro shows it really clearly that you can set up multiple addresses. There are 2 of them, and each one can be set to its own value, and by just flipping a bit in CV29 you can actually switch between the 2 addresses. And I've done this inadvertently in the past, but that's not what I'm doing here, because I'm not touching CV29. I very rarely mess about with CVs on the main line. The only ones I tend to ever touch are the momentum CVs and sound level CVs, and they don't have any other side effects. But what I'll do is I'll put up the Decoder Pro screen grab that I've got and show you what Decoder Pro gives you for the locations of the addresses. And these addresses are stored in 2 different CVs. Well, in fact, the long address is stored in a pair of CVs, and the short address is stored in another CV. And as I say, the decoder should determine which is which from a bit setting in CV29. I've just got a feeling that every now and again this Hornby loco, because we'll pick up the long address, the short address of another loco as 3, and think it's its own, thinking that it's set to its short address. And what you've got to bear in mind is that these addresses, the loco address and speed, are transmitted continuously, as far as I'm aware. For each loco that you've got in operation, they're transmitted continuously to the track, so that the loco doesn't, so that you don't lose control of the loco. And I think that this is yet another failing of TTS decoders. What I've actually done now is set that to set that primary address, the short address, to 2, if I can get that out, and hopefully that will stop it picking up when I'm running a loco set to the default address 3. I never have a loco set to address 2. I don't have any locos set to address 2 and can't ever think of a reason I would want to, unless I got hold of a peak class which was D2, in which case I would probably use the address 2. But then I'll set it to 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 or anywhere up to 127, where I don't have another loco on that same address. And we may find that fixes the problem. I just don't know yet. I'll have to report back to you in a future video as to whether it has cured it. But I'll just show the page that I was going to show you of Decoder Pro, and you can just see what I mean by the addresses and how it's stored. Also give you an idea of just how easy Decoder Pro makes things for you to set up in your decoders. So I'll be back in a second. So just to try and illustrate what I was saying about my class 31 with its TTS decoder, which remember is my only TTS loco where the TTS decoder is actually driving the motor. There are 2 addresses stored within every decoder. TTS is no different. What I have here is a screen grab, which I've just printed out, from Decoder Pro, which is part of the JMRI suite. And what it shows is one page of the decoder setting information for a TTS decoder, and it's a page that belongs to my class 31. The important thing to note is that it has 2 addresses. It has a primary address and an extended address. Now, I always use the extended address on all of my locos, and I use the last 4 digits of the number. So my 31110 is just 1110. That's its DCC address, and that's what it runs by. So I can always find out, I can always run that loco very easily by just looking at its number and saying that will be the last 4 digits. But the primary address of 3, which is what it was default set to, is still in there. Now if you were using a Hornby system, most of them only allow you 127 addresses until you get up to the Elite. Sorry, not the Elite. The Elite is not the one I'm thinking about. The one they use with Railmaster, the E-Link. Railmaster and E-Link I think allow for extended addressing, but most of the Hornby decoders don't. So nobody would ever notice if sometimes this loco, although it's set to use long address, i.e. 1110, no one would ever notice that, because they would only be using short addresses, i.e. 3, 4, 5, 6, up to 127. In fact, on some decoders, on some loco, some controllers, only 10 of them, like a Bachmann easy command station. But all that's irrelevant really. The point is that I still have address 3 set in here, although that is my primary address and that's the one that should be responded to. Excuse me. Now, a couple of times recently I have been running locos set to address 3, and I am just wondering if this TTS decoder every now and again picks up address 3, fails to realise that it's actually set for long addressing, extended addressing, and decides to respond to address 3. Because what happens is it just takes off for no reason while you're running the other loco. So what I've actually done in the loco is I've set this to 2, which I don't ever use address 2 to run a loco, and I want to see if that solves the problem. If it doesn't, then I'm afraid here is the one and only loco where I use a TTS decoder to drive the motor, where I'm going to ditch doing that as well. and I'm simply going to put in a second decoder because I'm just fed up with the stupidity of it. So that's the problem that I've suddenly started noticing on my Class 31. We'll go back now to the layout. Okay, well, been a bit of a bits and pieces video, but anybody who has trouble with DCC locos, then basically don't worry about it, because I've been doing this for a few years now and I still have trouble with them. And it's not because I can't solder, it's because what you've got from the manufacturers isn't always as good as you hope it should be. So that's about it for now. I will say thanks for watching, and we'll just have another run by of the 31 which is coming round. And I'll say I'll see you in a future video which should be coming along very soon.